Anxious women love, care, and nurture their partners deeply, but their needs can feel overwhelming to an avoidant partner. Why does she keep asking if you love her? Why does she need so much reassurance or seem to overthink every little thing you say? If you've ever found yourself frustrated with your anxious partner, here's the catch. The way you've been handling her anxiety might be exactly what's driving a wedge between you. In this video, I'll explain why her behaviors are not about you failing as a partner. They're about her attachment style and what you can do to meet her needs while still holding on to your independence and not losing yourself in the process. So up first, why does she act this way? Here's the science of anxious attachment style. Anxiously attached individuals often experienced inconsistent care in their childhood. Sometimes their needs were met, other times they weren't. And in fact, not only were they not met, but love was yanked away from them. There's something called learned helplessness you've got to learn about very quick right now. Learned helplessness is when a creature is injured over and over and over and over without a decipherable pattern or without them being able to stop the pain. Eventually, that organism gives up and surrenders to the constant pain and now learns to accept it. They may instead switch to trying to negotiate with the person inflicting the pain instead of a fight or flight response at all. A lot of anxious people, their fight or flight response is gone and they feel like they need to fawn and freeze. They need to fawn over you instead so that you will not only not hurt them, but continuously give them the hope and goodness that they're looking for. As a child, their caregivers would only give oxytocin when the baby was being good and would yank it away at any perceived imperfection. Sometimes they didn't even yank it away at an imperfection, but the baby thought they were, and the baby learned something's unlovable about me. This is why whenever something is off in your day and you feel stressed, she asks if you're mad at her. This is why, if something's slightly off, she assumes she did something wrong. This is why when she texts you and you don't text back, she might text you either following up really fast for more or apologizing for bothering you. This creates an overwhelming inferiority complex. Something is secretly wrong with me that makes people hurt me or get sick of me and abandon me. I can't see what it is, but everybody else can see it, and I don't deserve love. And when they see it, they'll leave me too. So when something goes wrong, she doesn't just assume, oh, something's off, let's fix it. She goes, oh no, you saw it, didn't you? You saw that thing in me that's unlovable, and now you're gonna leave me like everyone else does. And you know what? I don't blame you, but please don't. That's the response that you're actually getting from her. It might be couched in a number of different ways. It might come across insane sometimes, but that's the real response at the core of it. This unpredictability in childhood led to hypervigilance in relationships, constantly scanning for signs of abandonment. Now, avoidant people are not usually afraid of abandonment, maybe rejection, maybe betrayal, and they're also hypervigilant. But they're not hypervigilant to signs of disgust and abandonment necessarily. Is somebody else twisting somehow and I need to now buffer against them. There's a helplessness involved, that learned helplessness with the anxious person. Something is going wrong and I'm going to be the one that gets hurt and there's nothing I can do about it except fawn, meaning placate, give pleasure to, hope, right? This also creates something called emotional impermanence. Now, a baby has object impermanence. You put something in front of them and they say, oh, look, it's there. And you pull it away and it's, oh, poof, it's gone. They forget it exists. When you show it to them again, oh, another one. And it doesn't ring for them that maybe it's the same one. Now, they learn this over time. It's one reason we play peekaboo or we cover things with a blanket and they pull the blanket off. They learn the objects are real. It's object permanence. Emotional permanence is very similar. When I am in front of you and you feel my love for you, you know that my love for you exists. When I am gone with a healthy person, you know my love for you is still there. It probably hasn't changed because we haven't done anything to change the relationship. But with an anxiously attached person, when someone would move away from them, they were afraid, you are probably getting tired of me right now. You probably won't come back. I don't deserve for you to come back. Why would you come back? You're probably falling out of love with me right now at this moment. Emotional impermanence says when you aren't in front of me giving me love and reassuring me, You probably don't love me anymore. And this makes them frantic, as this is the experience she's having inside of herself as she's struggling and afraid that you are finding someone better and you're taking a nap. This is emotional impermanence. This is what this looks like in adulthood. Overanalyzing your texts or your tone, overthinking in the relationships, planning every single conversation for hours, an inability to share needs with you and tell you exactly what she wants up front. A lot of approval-seeking tendencies, seeking constant and frequent reassurance that you might feel is clingy or needy, chasing you and making you feel overwhelmed when they feel abandoned. A lot of emotional responses that might seem intense to avoidant people are actually rooted in genuine fear of disconnection and abandonment for the anxious partner. So let's go through a couple of these right now. I'm going to show you what you might be doing by accident without meaning to, and then I'm going to show you instead what to do to actually resolve some of these concerns in the relationship while also maintaining your independence and not feeling overwhelmed. First, when she seeks reassurance from you, what she's feeling is that reassurance seeking stems from a need for emotional safety. If she's asking things like, do you love me? Or do you still love me? Or are we okay? It's because she fears losing the connection, not because she doubts you. She actually doubts herself, and she doubts that anyone would still love her. It's not your honor or loyalty she's doubting. A lot of avoidant people take it that way. That's not the case. Oxytocin withdrawal associated with loss of safety in childhood, their brain remembers this pathway. It now signals danger when oxytocin bond is perceived to be taken away or dwindling. Again, this is called emotional impermanence. Here's what not to do. Don't dismiss her concerns with phrases like, you're overreacting, or relax. It's not a big deal. I don't get why you're doing this. These comments completely invalidate her feelings, and they just intensify the fear. There's also a thing that some avoidant people do that go, yeah, I mean, you're okay. Don't do that. Don't make a joke of it. Don't deflect with humor. This is a moment for reassurance, but you don't have to feel coerced into soothing. This is a moment to reassure. It's called co-regulate, but you don't have to pour everything in, stop your life, and soothe. Those are two very different things, okay? This is not a logic problem, by the way, and explaining logically is unlikely to help. There's the two different sides of the brain, the logical left side, the emotional right. When they experience these disruptions, the logic diminishes so that the emotional brain can go up with agitation. This is why she can't logically get out of it and say, well, yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation 20 times already. He probably is still in love with me. It'll be okay. Logic down, emotion up. Well, yeah, we've had this conversation 20 times, but this could be the time that he really has discovered that I'm actually unlovable. Definitely avoid long silences or withholding affection. Don't punish her for this. A lot of avoidant people say, well, if I reassure her, it will just reward the behavior. This can feel like rejection and abandonment to her and actually make things a lot worse and then make her testing more frequent toward you instead of less frequent. I know you're probably trying to decrease the frequency by not rewarding the behavior, but by starving that behavior, it does make it vastly worse. You're going to burn her out on you, or you're going to make her very, very, very desperate and addicted. Modifying her behavior by training her to expect long gaps, a typical avoidant plan, it doesn't improve the behavior. I'm just going to tell you that right now. A lot of avoidant people try to modify behavior in others by doing that. Bad idea. Here's what to do instead. Use very clear, concise language to affirm your feelings. I care about you and nothing has changed. Offer structured reassurance. I will call you after work so that we can talk more. We can have a conversation about this tonight at 7 o'clock when my schedule is open. It's perfectly fine to delay a conversation like that. It's perfectly fine to fit it into your schedule. You don't have to drop everything at a moment's notice to instantly soothe her. You may have had that feeling as a child that someone made you do that. That is not what she really wants. I mean, she needs the reassurance, but it's not what she wants you to feel or live like. And it's not what you want either. It's not what's required. What is required is, I care about you and nothing has changed. Reinforce the message that way. Predictability calms her nervous system. It shifts her brain from fear-driven responses to trust and stability. I care about you. I feel that nothing has changed. What is making you ask me this question? Put it back on her a little bit. Have her answer that question. I feel that nothing has changed. What has changed on your side that you're asking me this? Get her to think about that. A lot of anxious people are not aware of their emotional impermanence. It's a shock to them to hear about it. Get her to think about it a little bit. Now, second thing you can start doing differently right here is handling the emotional conversations differently, especially the ones that feel overwhelming and urgent. The reason that the anxious person rushes in and needs to have a huge emotional conversation right now and for the next 3 hours until 2 o'clock in the morning is because the emotional conversations feel like unresolved issues. And that mimics the instability they felt in childhood, which then led to them feeling abandoned. If we don't fix it right now, I'm going to get abandoned. If you walk away and we wait, it's all over. She needs the feeling that need is, I need to process my emotions to learn how she actually feels once she's past the emotional agitation. A lot of women in particular, and men too, but women in particular, often need a confidant to talk with. They talk through how they feel, they process it, they think. It drains the emotional agitation as the other person accepts them and gives them care. They get oxytocin and serotonin in the mix, and their agitation decreases. Their logic increases, and the woman will usually help herself understand how she feels. This is called processing. Now, a lot of times she's feeling the need to do this with you, and a lot of anxious people don't have someone in their life to do this with. They tend to pick one person who is their person, usually a partner, and that person is everything to them. Lover, spouse, best friend, therapist, priest, confessor, reassurer, parent, everything. That itself is its own issue. We can work on that at a different time. But what you shouldn't do when this happens, when she comes to have conversations, don't do that thing that a lot of avoidant people do where you retreat from the conversation or shut it down mid-conversation. Refusing to have the conversations flat out or pulling away and avoiding and dodging triggers her fear of abandonment. This actually will make her more frantic. Avoid brushing off her emotions as too much or overly dramatic. Instead, try this. Acknowledge her feelings without judgment, and honestly, even without saying that they're right. I can see that you feel upset. Let's work through this together so that we can both feel at peace. If you feel the need to pause the conversation at some point, let her know exactly when you're going to return to it and stick to your word. Hey, this is a little bit overwhelming right now. I just think we both need to cool down so we can have a good, productive talk. Can we come back to this conversation later at 7 o'clock or even in half an hour when we've both had some time to refresh? If she's doing it over text, hey, this feels like a conversation that we should have face-to-face just to make sure everything goes really smoothly. I need a little bit of time to process. Can we talk about it tonight at 7 o'clock when I see you? Set boundaries, especially if you start feeling overwhelmed, but be specific about them. Hey, I really need a moment to think this through, and I'd love to talk with you about that, but only once I've had a time to really think. I want to continue this conversation soon. When is open in your schedule? The psychology behind this is actually really interesting. Avoidant people usually do withdraw to self-regulate and bring their stress down. They withdraw, assuming that that's going to make the other person's stress go down. It actually makes it worse when they're anxious because it's an active abandonment fear, so the stress goes up, not down. And then avoidant people also withdraw to sort of think things through on their own because they don't trust the other partner to think things through with them. That's not usually something an avoidant person is used to. But this withdrawal feels like a punishment to an anxious person because, again, in childhood, everything felt like a punishment and often was. So those small gestures of reassurance that you can give bridge that gap. I need to step away to breathe because this is getting overwhelming, but I want to finish this conversation. Can we do it tonight at 7 o'clock? That, absolutely you can do. Step away, take your time to breathe and think and decrease your stress level while also simultaneously making sure you're not increasing hers and making it worse. Third different behavior to manage, and maybe tell me if you've seen this one. Guys out there, avoidant men, have you ever had a partner do this? Drop it in the comments and let me know if this one sounds familiar. Frequent check-ins. Checking in frequently isn't about control. It's about creating a sense of security. Remember the emotional impermanence? Inconsistent childhood care may have left her feeling uncertain about her worth. We see very anxiously attached children when they're playing in a room and mom is there. There's experiments on this. Mom leaves. The child cries uncontrollably. Then mom comes back and the child continues to cry uncontrollably and is now inconsolable, afraid that mom will leave again. Now, healthy children, mom will be there and the kids will be off on their own. And occasionally they come back, check in, and then walk away again. Occasionally come back and check in. It's just mom is still here. Mom hasn't left. She probably won't. I'm okay. The more anxious a child is, the more frequently they check in. The most anxious children won't leave mom at all, won't go play. They stay wrapped around her leg crying that they aren't being held. So the more frequent the check-ins are, the higher the anxiety is and the more the fear of abandonment. Okay. Uncertainty around what will trigger their abandonment in particular, your deal breakers are huge, huge. They don't know what your deal breakers probably are. And most avoidant people will state a couple of deal breakers up front, maybe, but typically not. It's not romantic to talk about deal breakers in the first couple of dates, right? Or when you're putting a label on the relationship. It's not romantic. This makes it worse. More about emotional impermanence here, right? Insert emotional impermanence by this point. Here's what not to do when she's checking in frequently. Don't label her behavior as clingy. This reinforces her worst fear that she's too much to love. And definitely don't respond with irritation. Definitely don't ignore. Imagine a small child coming to you, tugging on you, trying your pant leg, trying to get your attention. And you say, what? Not you again. Right? Or, why do you always need check-ins? Or ignoring and refusing to look, right? This is the anxious person reenacting with you. In this moment, they're back in that childhood fear. This doesn't mean she's going to be there forever, but this is where she's at mentally at the moment. You also don't have to scoop down, pick her up, hold her while she cries for 6 hours, pet her hair, call her bunny, and reassure her that you're going to marry her and have 50 babies. You don't have to do that either. And you certainly don't have to stop for 20 minutes to reassure her every single time she ever texts you or wants a check-in. That's not the point. Here's what to do instead. I tell all of my coaching clients to do this as couples, whether they are anxious and avoidant or not. Lay out your deal breakers early, so that everybody understands them and you have the outer boundary of the relationship captured. This is what would end our relationship. Don't do these things and you will be okay. Then she can check that list herself without your assistance. And if she ever checks in and is nervous, you could say, hey, are you checking in because you're nervous? Yeah, cool. Have you done any other things on the list? Nope. Then I love you. Easy. Proactively provide some small updates as well. Hey, once in a while during the day, hey, just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. Little check-ins like that, if you go and check in with her occasionally, means an absolute overwhelming amount of love for her. That actually is oftentimes her love language. And then work with her to establish a connection routine, such as a daily check-in or an end of day call. You need to know how often you're expected to check in. Otherwise, you're going to think that it's every single second of every single day. And she needs to know how often you are going to check in so that she can say, okay, he will check in with me at 7 o'clock and everything will be okay. If you have no expected check-in time, every moment you're not checking in with her is a missed check-in. Think of it that way. If you have a designated check-in, there are no missed check-ins. The incidence of feeling abandoned actually will decrease. Creating this predictable rhythm of connection reduces her need to reach out constantly, and it signals reliable and emotional safety for her. You come across as being very, very trustworthy and reliable and safe. She calms down, she gets what she needs, and she actually feels loved and like a priority because you're checking in occasionally and you're doing these scheduled check-ins. Build this and your life, both of you, will get so much easier. The next thing we've got to talk about is managing conflict without triggering abandonment fears. I bet she reacts very intensely to even the smallest conflict, right? For an anxious partner, conflict feels like a potential threat, not only to the relationship, but to their survival, to them as a human being, existential level destruction. Her heightened response is that defense mechanism to protect the bond and thereby protect herself. You're about to abandon me. It's all my fault somehow. I knew you would see this part of me. I knew it would come to this. This is it. This is the moment. And it's some tiny little conflict, like you're asking her where she wants to eat tonight, right? So here's what not to do. Do not walk away during these smallest conflicts. Do not disengage, especially disengage entirely. This will feel exactly like abandonment. It will escalate her reaction. Avoid saying things you don't mean, like, maybe we should just break up. These words cut so deep, they confirm all of her fears, and she will be thinking about them every single night for the next year because you said it once. Here's what to do instead. Keep your tone calm and neutral, even if you feel overwhelmed, right? You don't have to be emotionless, but calm, steady, neutral conversation tone. Front load with context. Hey, we need to have a quick conversation, but I just want to give you up front. This is not a breakup issue. This is not something make or break. We're not going to die here. Let's just have a reasonable conversation and get through it. You can acknowledge her concerns during a conflict. I understand that this is important to you, so let's figure it out. And you can take breaks responsibly. Hey, I need 10 minutes to cool my mind, but I promise we will talk after those 10 minutes. This is feeling very heated to me, and we're not going to be productive while we're heated. So why don't we take 20 minutes and cool down, then we'll come back to this. Set a very specific gap of time to return. This approach works in particular because anxious partners hate conflict. They hate the arguments. They hate all of this. They don't do them because they love them, and they don't focus and obsess over them because they want more of it. It's not that they crave that drama. They need the reassurance that the conflict won't equate to abandonment. So they have to have it as frantically as possible right there on the spot and then keep going until they feel safe. Now the conversation is no longer about resolving the conflict. It's about making sure they feel safe, and that completely detracts from actually solving problems. Handling these disagreements with care, though, can build trust and stability. It can also trigger that vasopressin bonding hormone that we talk about for both men and women. That's the hormone released when you solve stress and challenges and problems together. When you resolve these peacefully, actually resolve them, it makes both of you feel safe and trust each other more, which makes future conflicts easier to manage and makes her less likely to be afraid that you're going to abandon her in the middle of a conflict. So have the conflicts. Manage the emotional intimacy between them, manage the emotional turbulence during them, and then manage the resolution to build deeper bonding. That's the way through this. Now, one last thing for us to talk about here for how to modify your behavior to reach more relationship success. Not just to make her happy at your expense, because honestly, all of the things we're talking about here today are going to benefit you tremendously anyway. These are all good behaviors to employ, whether you're with an anxious person, a secure person, or anybody. Do these activities so that you can build more trusting relationships yourself. But these are especially formulated to be very, very nurturing and safe and reassuring for the avoidant partner, for the anxious partner, I should say, without taking on too much exhaustion yourself. So the last piece here is boundaries. The boundaries, particularly in anxious and avoidant relationships. Here's why boundaries are so hard for her. Anxious partners usually overextend themselves. They prioritize their partner's needs over their own to keep the relationship intact. The more I ask for, the more chance of you seeing that I'm unlovable and leaving me. The more I give, the more chance of you staying around and liking me. Fawn response. This is the fawn response, you guys. This is the mechanism for not being abandoned, to earn love. So when you see her struggling with boundaries, to say yes, to say no, to say anything at all, or even to tell you where she wants to eat today, here's what not to do. First of all, don't take advantage of her willingness to compromise. This can lead to resentment and burnout, especially around physical intimacy, around her needs for dating, for communication. Don't just shrug and say, hey, if she's cool with it, great. Don't do that. And if you're like, well, if she's not concerned about it, it's probably fine. Probably not also true. Okay? You need to understand that a lot of what she doesn't say is because she thinks that she can't say. This does not mean you need to walk on eggshells, that you need to be the adult in the relationship. None of that is the case. But keep in mind that if you find yourself saying, it's not a big deal. If it was, she'd say something. Nope, probably not. Stop and have a conversation, okay? Avoid framing boundaries, especially as rejection. Hey, I need space because you're just being too much right now. Don't do that either, please. Not ever. She will get that one. She'll get a picture of you saying that tattooed on her arm. And then every time that you ever try to talk to her again, she will show you the picture of you saying that she's being too much right now. And she'll already be crying. Okay? Don't ever do that. Instead, frame boundaries positively. Hey, I need some alone time to recharge so that I can be fully present with you later. Can you do that for me? Frame that boundary as a gift to you. Hey, I know that we both take care of each other, and right now what I need is actually a little bit of time to breathe. Hey, we're both heated in this conversation right now, and I want to make sure we have a good outcome together. So I think we should pause for 30 minutes. Let's go take care of ourselves, and then we'll come back when we're calmer. We'll have a great discussion. Frame those boundaries with the outcome you're hoping to achieve. Don't just throw the boundary out there without context and then back up. Not a good idea. In other words, help her see these gifts as gifts. It is a gift. Help her see these boundaries as her giving to you. Help her understand that she is loving you by following through on these boundaries. Explain to her how voluntarily giving that space improves your view of feeling of her. Hey, when you give me this space, it really actually builds my trust for you. So thank you for giving me this evening. Thank you for giving me Thursdays with my guys. It really means a lot to me that you give me that space. You don't have to say that you allow me to. That's not the case here. It's you give it to me voluntarily, and it means a lot. So thank you. Encourage her to set her own boundaries by affirming her worth. It is okay to say no sometimes. You don't always have to be on for me. And in fact, I don't want you to. It would be better for me if you said no and explained than said yes and didn't mean it. So please always tell me no when you mean no, and only say yes when you mean it. We will have discussions about that so that we can make sure that everything is right. Make sense? Lay that out early so that you don't have to walk on eggshells, but be very clear and direct with her, and maybe repeat it once in a while, especially if you see that she might be hesitant. Now, there's a lot here, you guys, and I want to be very, very clear. The goal is not for the anxious person to stay anxious or for the avoidant person to stay avoidant. That is never the goal, and I want to make that abundantly clear. The goal is to understand, to love each other, and then through these tactics, to build a more secure relationship together, which then echoes back and creates secure attachment for each one of you. Now, as both of you are in a secure relationship, and are becoming securely attached yourselves, you both need to spend less time placating each other or soothing each other. You've seen all of my videos about how to love avoidant men. The same thing applies in all of those videos. The goal is not to just love an avoidant man as he stays avoidant forever and then he gets to live like the lord of the castle. The goal is to fashion a securely bonded relationship, which builds security for both of you, which then decreases the load on each of you and then encourages long-term intimate bonding. Okay, so avoidant people out there, one big thing you can do is understand your own triggers. Avoidant people can explore and should explore why they are overwhelmed by closeness and emotional needs. They should be working to develop self-regulation strategies, but also, and this is absolutely key, learning how and who to trust, learning how to invest into that relationship, and then learning proper co-regulation and co-decision making with a partner. You need to be building a collaborative relationship with the other person instead of acting continuously upon the other person as if both of you are playing a game of chess. This relationship should not feel like a game of chess. That should end. Okay? Another thing that needs to happen in this relationship is building the anxious person her self-worth, complementing her strengths of character and her contributions to the partnership are crucial. Complementing her actions, okay, but understand that she already knows her actions are good, and that's why she's doing them, to try to earn love and approval. That's reinforcing the approval-based dynamic. Complementing the character and contributions overall to the union, that is much deeper and will strike at a lot of her self-esteem issues. She may argue with you a bit, and that opens the door to say, why are you arguing with the fact that I think that you are a good person? Why is this happening? Have that conversation. I encourage you to. Another thing to know is that she needs oxytocin bonding with more than just you. Oxytocin being the love, snuggle hormone that makes her feel safe. Oxytocin is her measurement of safety. She needs it with more than just you. The research is clear. If a creature has no oxytocin and then gets it with one other creature, their anxiety actually goes up and gets worse because now they're petrified of losing it. This is why I said earlier, anxious people pick one person to be everything and then hyper-focus. They can't. You have to have connection with more people. Help her identify her own principles and her goals in who she is so she can begin fashioning self-respect, and then encourage her to build more intimate connections with good, safe, trustworthy people. She needs probably a total of 3 people. You can be one, but she needs a friend and or family member or 2 friends. She needs 2 other people that she can really get this proper bonding from, and make sure that they are people who are healthy for the relationship as well. Now, I know that this can feel overwhelming to a lot of people on both sides or for a couple. This is why a tremendous number of couples come into my coaching practice or the attachment repair program to navigate fixing their attachment together. If this conversation today has felt like a lot of work, let us help you speed through that work and build it together as a couple. We're going to be happy to help you. Make sure that you click into the description below and find the section in there for how to work together with us, or leave a comment, or go on my website, adamlanesmith.com. There's a ton of resources on there for you right now. In fact, there are 2 free resources on that website right now that I would love for you to get access to. One is my free attachment newsletter in there. It's an exclusive guide to navigating attachment dynamics with tips and strategies for both partners in there. Make sure that you get my newsletter and sign up for it. Again, it's free. I also have the free attachment assessment guide on my website, adamlanesmith.com. You can figure out if you have an avoidant attachment style and how severe it is, and she can take it and see if she's anxiously attached and how severe it is. There's also steps on there for exactly what to start doing. And if you want a free call with our team to figure out if we are the right fit to help you with your needs, you can do that on the website too. Anxious partners out there, I would love to hear from you in the comment section right now. The things I talked about here today, would these be reassuring to you? Is this how you wish an avoidant partner reacted to you? And again, avoidant people out there, please let me know. Have you seen a lot of these behaviors in relationships? What did they do in the relationship? Did it wear you down over time? Did it endear her to you? What was your reaction? Share with us and let us know.